Hello, and welcome to the Drunken Folklorist. My name is Tom Ward. I'm an occultist, a folklorist, an anomalist of the Fortean type, and an all-about scholar of the weird. Today, in this first episode of the Drunken Folklorist, we're going to be talking about what is folklore. Folklore is the scholarly study of stories, and a lot of the stories that folklorists study are given as first-person experiential ideas. And it brings us to the talk of what is truth and what is fact. Fact is a scientific idea. It's the idea of something that is experimentally true. Something that you could go and do and experience for yourself. In other words, if one mixes a certain chemical with another, you could have the empirical data of watching that result. Where an empirical sighting, for instance, Bigfoot, is a whole different thing. If you experience it, you know it to be true. This is a wholly different thing. Just because someone else walks through the same stretch of woods as one person does not mean that they will have the same empirical data that that person would. One person walks through the woods and sees Bigfoot. Empirically, they know Bigfoot is a possibility in those woods. However, another person follows and they see nothing. Experimental data is possible to replicate, where empirical data of that type is an experience that a person has. So, I'm not asking you to believe, I'm certainly not. I'm telling you that I'm going to tell you some stories that other people and myself have experienced, and that is it. So believe it or not, essentially it is a story of human existence, and that is all that's important. In this first episode, I'd like to talk about a tale that my grandmother told me. And this was not my good grandmother. I have two grandmothers, like most people, and one of them was named Hazel Edwards Ward Sawyer, and the other was named Minnie Adams. And Minnie Adams was a delightful person, one of my heroes, a true hero of mine. She was a person that my mother could honk her horn, and it didn't matter where we were going. Minnie would run out putting on clothes, and she was just happy to go on the ride. And she's a personal hero of mine because of that. She loved traveling. She loved being on the road. Whatever we're doing, didn't matter. She didn't care. She always brought a word search thing with her. So if she ever got bored, she'd word search. She was a hero of mine. But the story I'm about to tell you was told to me by the other one, who was not a great person in and of herself. She was, well, a bit rough. We'll call her rough. At any rate, Hazel was a Welsh woman. She was Welsh by descent, as am I suppose. But Hazel told me of an uncle that she had that slept one night in a building, and in the middle of the night he felt a cold chill. It penetrated his covers. And I remember being a young boy and her telling us this. It was around Halloween. But this cold chill came over him, and all of a sudden the covers were pulled off of him. And I took it as what it was. It was a ghost story, a tale of horror being told to a child. And I was horrified by it. For months, I was worried about my covers being pulled off me. And that was that, except years later, as I'm an adult, I'm writing a story about the folklore of where I grew up, which is a swamp in central Florida, a place called Welcome. They wouldn't call it. Nobody there calls it Welcome. It's actually called Lithia Pinecrest, maybe Keysville, but there was a town there back in the 20s that was called Welcome, and it died out when the railroads moved. And so the people there are actually living in a town called Welcome. And for my story, I wrote it in a novel called Misel Creek. I left the town. I actually made the town as if it existed in the 80s. Oh, this is the Drunken Folklorist. We are drinking Kirkland vodka, I believe. Hopefully you got that. Kirkland vodka. Hopefully you're drinking a good drink yourself. One way or the other. In the research for the novel of where I grew up, I talked to a bunch of the old folks around Welcome, which is Lithia Pinecrest, Florida. It's in Hillsborough County in the far eastern part. Somewhere between Tampa, Fort Lonesome, and Brandon. You can go on Google Maps. Ironically, back when Yahoo Maps existed, Welcome still existed as a place. But I promise you, it really isn't, except in the novel. But while researching it, I was stunned when an older man, I'm not going to tell his name, he didn't want his name told, but this older man told me a very similar story about being in his house, and it was a cracker, old-style Florida pine house, and he was asleep one night, and the covers got yanked off of him after this experience of cold and such, and he hopped up and he turned on a light and he looked through the house and he found the covers folded perfectly up under the foot of the bed. It is included in Misel Creek. It's told pretty much exactly as how it was told to me. And what struck me is my grandmother, many years before, had told me that story almost verbatim, including the folding, from my Welsh uncle back in the old land. And it struck me, it truly struck me when I heard that story. It gave me that chill that I had when I was young. So, is this something that occurs? I have worried and woke up with my covers off me and worried as a kid. Did that happen to me? But I can't say objectively, even empirically, as we've discussed, that it was something that happened to me. I've seen many strange things in my life, but I don't know. I have no doubt that the person that told me the story was telling me something they believed happened. And as far as my grandmother and the tale of her Welsh uncle, I believe it, and it definitely made me believe it more when this person told me essentially the same tale. Have any of you had that experience? Do you believe that experience is possible? Well, thank you for watching this, the first episode of The Drunken Folklorist. Be well out there.